Okay, we're gonna get started. If you could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome to the November 21st, 2019 Town of Riverhead Planning Board meeting. First item on the agenda today is a discussion item, continued discussion for 406 Osborne Avenue. Hey, how are you?
Good, so,
Pretty good, thanks.
good.
Just your names for the record, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. For the applicant Nona Christopher Modeleski, 44 Elm Street, suite number 18 in Huntington. I'm an attorney at law.
And also for the applicant, Tom Kramer, principal firm of Kramer Consulting Group, its office at 54 North Country Road, Miller Place.
All right, thank you. All right, Greg, so we didn't bring this to a vote due to some concerns last meeting, so that's why we're back here.
Correct, yeah. The resolution has been tabled, I believe, since September 21st, if I recall. September 19th, I apologize. And at this point, we're here to just sort of hammer out any remaining concerns from the board regarding the aesthetics of the building, as well as the size of the apartments. At this point, I think, any remaining questions be directed to the applicant. I think they're prepared to respond.
Okay, I know we worked hard on this for a long time, but at the last meeting, it didn't seem like there was gonna be enough support to have it approved, so instead of taking a vote and voting it down, we felt we should have you come back here and at least put some of the
Okay.
concerns on the table, so that's where we are. I know Joe was not here today. He had a concern with the size of the units.
Right.
However, I understand, and I think the rest of the board understands that they're allowable sizes.
Yes.
Obviously, there's a market for 'em if that's what you wanna do, and really, that shouldn't be a consideration for this board to oppose it. So
Right.
I think we should just take that part of the discussion right off the table to
Okay.
start with.
Okay, yeah,
Thank you,
that's-
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that's certainly fair.
I think the other question that we had was aesthetically fitting into the Polish Town area. Some board members would have liked to have seen maybe something more ethically, suitable for the area. I don't know what that means. I know you worked with us on the facade changes a couple times, but I don't know. I think they've done ethnic type shutters in the past, colors that represent, the area that the proposed building is gonna go in.
Right. What this represents now is the Architecture Review Board's comments. I think the last time we came in, we discussed, we had shutters on it, went to the Architecture Review Board, they said, take them off. They said, make it this color, and they signed it off. This is their referral, or their approval, and it refers to this date. They wanted, I think there was an eyebrow on one of these before, a little shaped window in the roof, they said remove that. We're amenable to anything that you feel. If you want us to put shutters back on, we'll put shutters back on. And this is just because of what they came back with. I think it's a good looking building. There's a lot of breaks and all. Going back to what Joe had concerns with, I talked to the architect about trying to equalize out the size of the apartments. He said that would be just like starting over from scratch. We'd have to change everything and, and 500 square feet is not that small.
No, I think there's a need for that size apartment
Oh, yeah,
myself.
yeah.
It's the aesthetics, that building could go anywhere. Here it's gonna be the cornerstone, in Polish Town, and.
What would you like? I mean, my
I'm
client's
not the
willing to do.
designer or the applicant.
Well, we went to Architecture Review Board, we had it in there, we had shutters, we planned on doing something with the shutters. It's a good-looking building. I don't think anybody can argue that. There's interest in the overall design, there's breaks and everything. Maybe Chris wanna speak to this. but if he wants to put shutters on, you know, colored shutters, I know some of the buildings through Polish Town have the
Yeah.
shutters on the second story, with chickens or whatnot, or whether they're chickens or the eagle or what, I don't know.
Maybe the
but
Polish eagle as
they-
opposed to
yeah.
a chicken, Mr. Kramer.
You read my mind.
Well,
Well,
maybe we have some of the same sympathies, Mr. Denzeski. I just wanna augment what Mr. Kramer said on behalf of the client, and I think I'd be doing less than my job, if I didn't. I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, and with you, Mr. Denzeski, that there's a palpable need for one-bedroom apartments in the town. In fact, I can put it into evidence right now. I had commissioned an MLS search just today to find out how many available apartments there are, one-bedroom apartments within Riverhead. You do have a rental registration law, as you know, so a broker who's complicit in, you know, the listing or letting of an apartment that does not have a permit runs afoul of the law. And MLS does have a presence in the town of Riverhead to write out on 58. So what I found was that there are currently 13 one-bedroom apartments that are available for rental. When I looked at those apartments with respect to the rate of the rent and what the applicant and owner intends to charge here, which is about $1,500 per unit, that's very favorable to some of the adopted findings in your comprehensive plan of 2003, which encouraged the creation and maintenance of workforce housing. So I have those. I'll offer them as proofs for you, or just you know, as a point of edification. And I think it's persuasive. The way I understand your architectural review board, or in some instances it's referred to as aesthetic zoning, the way I understand them to function is that they are advisory and that final determinations are made by this board.
Correct.
And that authority is vested here. As Mr. Kramer indicated, at this point in the process, which is nearly 3 years down the line from the initial departmental meeting with respect to the project, if you have a couple of additions or suggestions for things like shutters, or maybe some color changes, something that's very, very simple, I think the client, who's a reasonable fellow, would be more than eager to do that, knowing that we would have in hand the preliminary approval, and I would request, under the present premises, a waiver of a public hearing for the adoption of the final.
Shutters was just a suggestion. We weren't telling, you know, it was like, hey, would shutters make it look better, or, you know, we kind of, I don't know if I'm speaking for myself or everybody, we kind of wanted it to be a little bit more of like a anchor in Polish Town. And while you say it's a beautiful building, we can agree that building could go anywhere. It just didn't lend anything to being the anchor of Polish Town, in my opinion. What can we do that's not expensive, while it's still ink on paper, to make it, you know, better? I always use the McDonald's in Mattatuck. Do you ever go by there?
Yeah.
They have gold leaf, golden arches, and they did it right. And everyone that comes to Riverhead always wants to strive for mediocrity, and we usually attain it. So I just want it, you know, the corner of Polish Town, what can we do? It's not gonna cost your applicant a lot of money, but make it better. That's my thought.
I mean, this doesn't really reflect the color scheme that, you know, because it's printed off of a color
Yeah,
printer, but it's essentially a tan building. I mean, we can certainly provide shutters throughout on the second story. I don't think they'd look good on the first story, but the second story with the eagle on
And I
it.
think we could tastefully emboss the eagle on the shutters.
Yeah.
I don't think
Well,
that's an
something like that.
unreasonable
Yeah.
request.
I mean, we'd be
And
we'd be glad to do
I think that would certainly add some charm and,
It would fit in with the rest of the character
would
down
add some
down the street,
perspective
yeah.
on that corner. And your point is not unnoticed or unreasonable, Mr. Denzeski. We get that. We'd just like to be able to button it up.
I understand, I agree, time is money, I get it.
If I may add, I feel like it's worthy just noting towards the merits of the application. The application does propose to preserve the Polish Town sign that's currently on the property. I mean, as of right, I understand Polish Town is an important, you know, cultural aspect of the community. It is unpermitted, there's really no record of how it came to be. So the applicant is preserving that. It is going to be on the corner, so as you are in the intersection, that's gonna be one of the first things you see.
Yeah,
So I mean, I do think it is worth noting, that they are trying to preserve that aspect.
Yep,
In
that's great.
terms of the aesthetics of the building, I mean, I'm not an architect, I can't comment on that, I have no Polish heritage, so no skin in the game, but, like I said, I think it is worth noting that, and,
So what we could do is, the resolution that was tabled, we could amend that, to include, Polish themed shutters on the second
No,
story.
I don't wanna limit to that, whatever the applicant will agree to.
Well,
that-
I'm sensing that you
Yeah.
guys want us to vote on this today.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is preliminary.
I know.
I'm
Yep.
willing to vote on this, and before the final, if you guys could come up with whatever the owner
You
wants.
wanna look at it?
If
Sure.
you'd like to.
Yep,
What's
I think
the-
that's reasonable, Mr.
what's the
Tenzeski, I
parking
think.
situation?
We needed, 2 spaces, and we got the variance for that because we had the parking,
Uh-huh.
all that parking to the north, the town and the county parking lots.
Okay.
So the variance, and there's a cut-through?
This cut-through is provided in the site plan. And variances were
What's the
granted.
variance for?
2 spaces.
Sizes, 2 spaces?
Yeah, 2 spaces. And that,
You reduce the sizes of the spaces overall, you have the small spaces in there.
we have
correct? Yeah.
we have the large spaces in there.
Right, so
Yeah,
those
but
are
If
conforming.
we went with the small spaces, we wouldn't have needed a variance.
We wanted them to
Yes.
make them larger, so
Yeah.
they had to go get the variance.
Oh.
Yes,
And they did it.
Got it.
they were the 9x20 double striped when they initially came in.
Right. And then we made them bigger and needed the variance. And they granted that.
Maybe we could, vote on this today, and before you come back, maybe 2 or 3 different ideas, or just come back. I keep asking people to impress us.
Yeah,
So
okay.
come back and impress us.
That's no problem, you
and
know,
then we'd be happy to
as
support
I
you.
said, the plans reflected the architectural review
I
board.
understand, I appreciate their
And,
job.
you know, and we're glad to do it because I think my client is looking for exactly the same thing, to provide some character to the
Yep,
building.
let them be the
It's not
anchor of
just-
Polish Town.
Yeah,
All right, so as I understand it, we're going to amend the resolution before the board votes on it. If I may propose an amendment, in the resolved, it says prior to final site plan approval, as it reads right now, the applicant shall provide color and material samples of the proposed building materials to the planning board and ARB prior to final approval. We could amend that to say that the applicant shall provide amended architectural elevations to the planning board.
Perfect.
I will remove ARB because, as he stated, they are advisory, so we will provide.
and they want something different than what you want.
Yeah, that's,
So-
that's okay,
Yeah.
everyone's trying to
That's-
achieve the
that's
same
fine,
thing.
yeah.
But the overall building isn't changing, so I mean.
No,
No.
no,
Right, it's just
yeah,
a
it's just
little
some
bit
of
of
the
the-
aesthetics, yeah.
yeah.
Some of the things we had on there,
We could
they
add the
wanted
shutters,
removed,
add
yeah.
the eagle, add maybe some fixtures.
Yeah,
Yeah,
This is-
there you
yeah.
go,
Yeah.
there you go.
yeah,
That'd do it.
okay,
Those amendments.
Yeah, that was easy.
good.
So it sounds like you're gonna have a favorable vote, so if you don't wanna stick around to the end, you don't have to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
No, I appreciate your
Yeah.
candor. Can
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you.
Okay,
members of
thank
the
you very
board.
much.
And to you,
Appreciate
Mr.
it.
Denzesky, I say,
Yeah.
jeszcze Polskę Neskę.
That
All
was
right,
good.
thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next item on the agenda, number 2, PBMC Northwell Health Cancer Care Center.
Hey Karen,
Hi, Ed, how are you?
very good.
Hello.
Darren Busso from Northwell and Lillian
Darren.
Mitchell from Laconic Bay.
Angus.
Hi, everybody. I looked over the resolution, Karen. You don't have to go through reading the whole thing. There's only one question I had.
Okay.
We're okay with the resolution. The only thing I would ask the board is that this property has mortgages on it, and there's an IDA, ground lease and pilot agreement. If you wouldn't mind moving the condition about the covenant restriction, with the relocation or the shuttling of the employees prior to issuance of CO instead of prior to issuance of building permit. So right now, the condition that's in
Can I
there.
ask a
Sure,
question?
sure.
Yeah, actually, it's in there, prior to signature of the Mylar.
So, question. Given the hospital's credibility over the years, Is there any chance, and I ask this from the context of the mortgages, the IDA and everything else, and knowing the paperwork involved with a covenant, is there any chance that you would accept a side letter agreement, as opposed to a covenant?
How binding would that be, Dick?
The problem is the precedent. It's the same problem you always have. I mean, you'd like to accommodate the hospital, of course, but it's up to you.
Does it help if it says signing of the Mylar, right?
Yeah, I mean, if the board wants, I guess we could move it down to prior
CO.
to the issuance of a CO.
One more question. If perhaps an adjacent parking solution we were in contract for, God willing, before C of O, would it still be necessary for this
I
provision?
think they could come back and
Well, the covenants, your standard covenants are always going to be required. So the issues with the IDA and the mortgages will always be there for the standard covenants. And certainly the board would entertain an application at any time to remove the
To remove the
restriction
condition.
Right, to amend
on the
it.
parking. I mean, the parking is an accommodation to the hospital
Yep.
that the board is granting, so the hospital could always ask that the accommodation be removed.
So then, for a variety of reasons that I'm not at liberty to discuss publicly, I would also ask that we move it to the time of the CO.
So just so I'm understanding, the covenant regarding the parking and the regular covenants
And
you'd
the
like
regular
to move to?
Yes. Can I combine them as one covenant? I don't have to do two separate?
You and I will work that out, so
Okay.
it won't be a problem.
Great.
But we don't want you going to the bank twice.
Okay,
right.
thank you.
And we want to get you up and running, so.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So F and G will move from underneath, I believe it was 1. Yeah, from under 1, we'll put it to under 5, which
That's
is
fine.
prior to CO.
And then you don't have to read through the whole thing. I already read through it. I went through it.
Well, we'll amend it
Okay.
on the 5.
No, I know sometimes you read through the whole resolution.
Oh,
I
no.
mean, you didn't have to do that.
Is there anything else, Karen? 'Cause I know we got a couple different versions of the floor plan.
Yeah, we were
Oh.
kind of working down to the last minute. We finally came up with there'll be a deficiency of 37 parking spaces.
Okay.
And there's some things to change on the site plan because I think they were working off of a old plan that showed septic system abandonment and hooking up to sewers when it's already hooked up to
Right,
sewers.
so she outlined those, and the architect for the landlord is going to make these 9 changes to mostly I think it's to the lighting /
Well,
site
the
plan.
lighting that they proposed, they did some modifications, it's fine, so they'll just be doing those modifications, there's some relamping and what have you. And then all those other, like, repair things with the fence and the striping and the paving and all that, those are just conditions.
Okay. All right. We'll get you approved today.
Yes, and
Thank
we,
you so much.
thank you
Great,
thank you.
Karen,
Thank you.
because she
All right, Karen.
was back and forth emailing with the property, the landlord, not ours, but the landlord's architect, and, I just wanted to let you know, she really worked
Yep.
hard and
Thank you, Karen.
getting
You're
done.
welcome.
Thank you.
And just as an update to the planning board on another matter, ribbon cutting for the, what is now the Corey Critical Care Pavilion. And
So what's the name of it?
Corey,
Corey?
$10 million gift from the Corys.
Yes, I
The
saw
Corey
that.
Critical Care Pavilion and the Canis Regional Heart Center will be on January 10th, and we hope you can join us.
Thank you.
Thank you. for
Thank
your
you.
What
support.
time, Mr. Mitchell?
Don't know yet.
Okay.
Thank you very
Take
much.
care.
Wanna see
Good
it.
luck.
Thank you, guys, good luck.
Thank you
Take care.
very much.
Thank you.
Karen, thanks for getting that done.
Yes.
No problem.
Thanks, Karen.
You're
All right,
welcome.
moving right along.
Okay, next item on the agenda is Old Orchard at Riverhead. Just your names for the record, please.
Jeffrey Thomas Butler, professional engineer.
Joe Manzi.
And you're the applicant or owner?
Applicant. You're the applicant, I saw your wife's signature on one of those.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's a family trust, I'm not allowed to
Right.
do anything on it.
Okay. All right, so the planning department has received and reviewed an application to approve a yield map for a major subdivision of a vacant 26.1 acre wooded parcel of land located on Middle Road within the Residence B40 zoning use district. The subject parcel is a 26.1 acre irregularly shaped parcel of land located on the north side of Middle Road, approximately 680 feet east of the intersection of Middle Road and Harrison Avenue. The grade of the property undulates throughout the property with an elevation of approximately 37 feet at the frontage of Middle Road, an elevation of approximately 46 feet at its northern property boundary, and varying grades as high as 55 feet throughout the subject property. To date, the applicant has submitted a map entitled Proposed Yield Map for Old Orchard at Riverhead, prepared and stamped by Jeffrey T. Butler, professional engineer, last dated June 18th, 2019. And the applicant has also submitted one sketch plan. Pursuant to the standard yield requirements of the town code for any subdivision application, the map that has been submitted by the applicant demonstrates that all of the proposed 22 lots identified in the yield map do comply with the minimum dimensional regulations of the RB40 zoning district. The map also identifies a 57,234 square foot recharge basin for the retention and recharge of stormwater. Areas required for roadway improvements have also been taken out of the yield calculations pursuant to town code. In reviewing town files, town GIS systems do indicate the presence of a mapped Town of Riverhead freshwater wetland on the subject property, which is identified as wetland number 3906. If you see on page 3 of the staff report in figure number 2, it's kind of hard to see on these images, but there is a green blob which in our system identifies the presence of a wetland. During a site visit conducted by planning staff on November 8th, 2019, there were no indications of wetland vegetation or standing water in the area in the subject parcel. Upon reviewing the files maintained by the Town of Riverhead Planning Department when these wetlands were originally mapped in the late 1970s, the wetland notes indicate that the area was identified as, quote, not a wetland when the areas were originally mapped. Based on the existing contours of the site and the large tributary area located to the north, which is almost 1.34 million square feet, it's likely that this was just the low point and kind of served as a natural water course for that tributary area. Pursuant to town code, 3 sketch plans may be required to be submitted by the applicant, one of which may be considered a cluster development. As I stated, to date, the applicant has only submitted one sketch plan, which is a clustered development plan. It does propose lots ranging in size from 30,000 square feet through 56,264 square feet, as well as an open space preserved area along the frontage with Middle Road in that vicinity of approximately 3.3 acres, as well as a 66,000 square foot drainage recharge basin. The current sketch plan also identifies a single access roadway from Middle Road, which splits off into 2 roads which terminate in cul-de-sacs. Proposed right-of-way is 55 feet, which complies with the town code and shows a roadway width of 28 feet. As the applicant moves forward, they will need to provide paving details and specifications which must comply with the requirements of the town code. If the 22 lot yield map before the board is approved, the applicant, if the board so desires, may be required to submit 2 additional sketch plans, of which the planning board can select the most appropriate subdivision layout. With regards to the cluster subdivision itself, although town code 301-295 states that cluster development shall be required for lands which are zoned RB80, RA80, and APZ, there is nothing which prohibits submitting a cluster plan in the RB40 zoning use district. There are a number of cluster plat requirements enumerated in the town code which must be addressed by the applicant when they submit the sketch plans. But ultimately, clustering, I don't see how it would be viewed as anything other than a sound planning tool. You get to preserve open space, preserve trees, preserve the natural habitat, and you're not increasing the yield. It's still just, you're shrinking the size of the lots. In terms of Riverhead Water District, the parcel is located within the Riverhead Water District extension number 49. There is an 8-inch water main which runs along Middle Road. And just the final recommendation, if the board agrees, the application name, Old Orchard at Riverhead. I know there is an Old Orchard at Baiting Hollow. Maybe just for clarity's sake, the applicant might consider maybe calling it Old Orchard 2 or something just to avoid any sort of confusion when referencing the application.
Just for your information, they only have one lot left. So by the time this is approved, that'll be sold out. They only have one lot. So most likely they'll be done by the end of July. I don't think this will be approved by, but we could change it if you want.
I
but
mean,
I'm
it's
just-
insignificant. It just, going forward, if there's any issues regarding the, bond releases or bond, I think just for.
The name sticks with it for a
Yeah.
long time.
Clarity.
Yeah.
From any,
Just construction-wise, and I think everything is done there except for the second layer. All the signs and all that is put up and all.
Just in terms of tracking building permits and when,
It's just an
it's done by
old
name,
board.
Yeah, I know.
and we had this problem with
Like
another
equipment.
application. They're such similar that we have to pull out 2 files to try to figure out which subdivision is, to try to figure out which lot it is, so it just makes our life a little bit more
Just for
difficult, so.
clarity.
Yeah, okay.
Not a problem.
Yeah, I think that's really insignificant.
And just so
in-
you know,
in the
the,
grand
uh,
scheme of things,
Absolutely.
The current
not a huge
application,
change.
it's
not a
going
brand,
beautifully,
so-
and,
Okay.
thank you
Yeah.
for all, thank all your contractors, they've been really easy to work with. It's coming out very nice.
I did distribute comments from the town's consulting engineer to the board members. In general, the town's consulting engineer was recommended approval of the yield map. However, with the sketch plan that was submitted, there were drainage concerns with a number of the lots, as well as the location of the drainage reserve basin. But again, based on the town code and the requirement for 2 additional sketch plans, through a discussion with the planning board, I think we can, it's acceptable for the 22 lots. Now it's just a matter of coming up with the ultimate design and layout of the subdivision.
So is most of the area wooded right now?
Yes, it was pretty difficult to get through a lot of it when I went and did a site visit.
Pretty sure when I was a kid, that was potatoes. I know a couple of the farms there I worked on when I was young, and I think that 40, 50 years ago was actually potatoes there. I don't know, is any old growth in there or no?
Well, there, I walked through this whole property, maybe got up to about this point. There are farm fields that are adjacent to
Yeah.
the property. I don't know historically where the farm ended, if it just contributed, became reforested. While we're on the topic of adjacent lands, the parcel to the north has a development rights strip. Parcel to the east still has development rights intact. So while the applicant is considering additional sketch plans, they may want to consider leaving some space to possibly connect from the existing subdivision. If this is ever developed to the east, instead of having another road off of Middle Road, that may be just a future planning consideration that the board could recommend.
So why is there only one plan when there should be 3?
This was approved.
This was appro-
2005.
This was approved in 2005?
Yeah. We went through that, different sketch plan scenarios where we had maxed out the lot sizes and had clustered shorter than this. And we went through the drainage, answered all the drainage questions that came up again. Did the road and drainage plans to the satisfaction and had this resolution approved in 2005.
Emerald Meadows?
Correct. Previous owner.
It wasn't my application.
So I'm a little concerned about the location of this recharge basin because it's right in the backyard and side yard of 2 existing lots and houses that have been there for a long time.
So in the sketch, there's open space between them. And that was,
Drainage basin would be here, on the back of 2 lots.
So it's different than what we have here,
Well, that's the,
There are 2 pages.
the sketch one, okay.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, when an applicant comes in, they traditionally start with the yield map. Most applicants do not come in prepared with any sort of sketch plan, so.
Okay. I mean, it's still up against this lot here. I mean, the guy's house is set back, is that McCabe?
Mhm.
I mean, he's been there forever. I mean, why couldn't it be more centrally located?
I'd have to revisit it and look at the, topography and flows. It may be able to be.
And the property immediately to the north, is the elevations higher than
Correct.
this property? So a lot of that water runs from north to south coming this way, right?
There's my trib area. We've already accounted for it.
Okay.
And again, we went through with the town's consultant engineer, 14 years ago.
Well, it's been a long time.
Raindrops are still raindrops.
Well, I'd like to see the recharge moved, away from these lots here.
Like here?
I mean, why not in the middle? I mean,
Well, I think a recharge basin is a great neighbor.
I was just gonna say, most people like the,
Yeah.
recharge.
Yeah, I wouldn't-
Surprisingly, only because you don't have no neighbors.
personally, I
to
don't think
watch
I would
when
buy a
you're in the
house next to a
swimming.
recharge basin myself, but I guess it's one's opinion, but,
It's usually the first lot that's sold.
Yeah.
yeah.
It buffers you from, but like you said.
And this is
everybody's-
heavily, it's
Yeah, I
heavily
got one
wooded?
in my house, best neighbor.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
could-
preserved open space, in a sense.
Yeah, construction would obviously require a SWIP, as they would be disturbing well over an acre. But yes, right now it is all vacant wooded land.
Well, just past history in town, tearing down all these trees, it's really starting to become troubling, so, when we get further along, I'd really like to see some measure to save some of these trees here. I'm not gonna support something that goes in with a bulldozer and clears a whole lot, I'm just not gonna do that anymore.
We never do that.
Never
In
do
fact,
that.
on the other one,
Well-
no, I just went, on the other one, we actually, signed a covenant, which you guys never, for anybody else, where we would only clean 60% of the property or something like that. We followed that in the subdivision, 20, in Old Orchard Bay Hollow.
On top of the open
We did
space.
sign a covenant, which you people never required, but we agreed to it, because we don't believe what you're just saying. I'm not just saying it to make you feel,
Okay.
I don't believe in, to me, it's ugly.
I hate to, and the other thing is what the quality of the woods is. I have not visited this site. Sometimes you look at a map, an aerial, and it looks like it's pristine woods, and then you go and clear out the understory, the bittersweet, and the invasive species, and you're left with, and we see it time and time again, we think we're doing the right thing by preserving trees. Remember with, the pods, we thought we were doing a really great, saving all this, but when you clear out all the not so nice stuff, there's very little left. So, I don't know about this property, Greg couldn't get into it, maybe none of the trees are, have defoliated, we can go back out there and re-examine it, just to see what the quality of the woods are. I like trees, and I wanna do it, I just don't know what the quality of these are, so.
Well, the same thing was said for Riverhead Ford. I mean,
Yeah,
drive by
I know.
there now, and
I know.
that's pretty much a disaster, what we allowed to happen there. And the other one is, next to the town highway. I mean, I can't tell you how many people stopped me in town and said, what did you allow there? So, me personally, I'm gonna be a lot more conscious about it going forward. The other question I have is the water district, I understand it's within the Riverhead Water District boundaries, but, do they have sufficient supply to service this 22 more homes? Every summer, they come out with water shortages and conservation measures, so we'd really need a strong letter from them, what they're gonna require.
So, when the applicant moves forward, if the planning board approves the yield map, when we go forward with deciding the sketch plan, and when we start the secret referral process, it would be a type 1 action due to the amount of land disturbance, so it would require a coordinated review, and that is something that would be undertaken under a secret review, is an analysis of the water district's capacity within this area to service that. At this point, the board's really just being asked to approve a yield map. As we move forward, and obviously as we move forward, we can get further into that and do the analysis, but right now, the board is just being asked to look at the 22 lot yield map. And Mr. Chairman, just to speak to some of your comments, the town code is a general guideline when we talk about cluster subdivisions. As I said, those are generally in the 2 acre zoning districts. The ideal ratio is 70% preserved, 30% clustered. because you're dealing with larger lots, you're dealing with 2 acres, you have more room to downsize those lots. Here, when you're starting with a 40,000 square foot minimum zoning size, you know, if the board desires, they could probably go down to 20,000 square foot lots, in order to preserve, as I said, I think 3.3 acres would be preserved up front. You know, I mean, if they move, I don't know how much lower the board would wanna go into actual developed lot size, but if they move down to something that was maybe average 20,000 square feet, they could maybe preserve 6 acres. It's just a matter of the numbers and the lot sizes of what the board would deem desirable and appropriate for that area.
Greg, this is full yield?
Yeah.
Well, that's a little small. We did go 3/4 acres on the other one. We did, and you have that right, that's on each lot. It gave us like a 70% clearing.
It varied
which
some
is
because of
adequate.
grade, we had to do a little
Mhm.
more, but we kept it to an absolute minimum.
Yeah,
In
you
fact,
should
we
ju-
never even
just
came
for your
close to what
information,
the
go
covenants
Look
were.
at the one in old, we tried to, I know we didn't overclear.
Will this project require a public hearing?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
get that far.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, well, this is very, very early in the process. This is like the first step.
There's really almost not many houses on that road, so I don't think there'll be a problem with the water. No, 'cause,
And yeah, that's really an analysis
yeah,
for the water
the
district to
water
provide.
authority has to do, but doesn't appear to be
The only reason I brought that up-
overpopulated.
The only reason I brought
Look
that
at
up
this
was
one, man.
because this particular
where it's
layout,
at.
we had
right where
in
it's
the
at.
public hearing, I mean, everybody's gonna get the notice.
Yeah.
That's when this would be a problem,
Yeah, sure.
you know?
And this is also, the application will have to comply with the Long Island Workforce Housing Act, which, being that the applicant is proposing the maximum density on the property, they would either need to reduce the yield by 1 lot in order to get out of having to provide for affordable housing. If they opt to go for the maximum yield build-out, I believe they would get a density bonus, but that would have to be reserved as affordable housing. So that ultimately would factor into the ultimate yield, whether you'd wanna lose a lot, and you could provide 21 market rate units, or increase, I believe, I don't wanna misspeak, but I believe it's a 10% density increase. So you could potentially get 24, but you would have to
We
set
don't
aside.
do that because we do affordable housing out in East Hampton and Southampton, we're currently doing them. So my daughter's pretty much pro affordable housing.
So,
At one
yeah.
time, we was looking to do condos here, and we just figured, which problems. We went with the town council, and they seemed to, I think you guys.
So Jeff, you would need to come up with a
and we
plan to
just
show,
realized-
the additional, lots in order to comply with the law.
Correct.
Because we're doing something in Wading River,
Mhm.
the town of Brookhaven, and we're doing free, a little bit more. So I think she may, well, that's up to her, my daughter, because they actually gonna be building it, it's under, the land is more, no, it's too complicated stuff. But she probably would like.
We should maybe put a caveat in the resolution, that this is the town zoning yield and the applicant's election to, provide affordable housing or density based on that election would be determined at a future time. This is the non-affordable housing yield under the zoning.
That's what we're.
So when we get the sketches, I think at the time he presents you with 3 sketches, usually there's a tight cluster, a medium cluster, and a no cluster, that's the 3 sketches. When he presents those, I think he's gotta tell you, am I trying to, where am I picking my density with the affordable housing? So I don't know if you have that,
Yeah, we can incorporate that into the resolution.
So that's on today.
No, it's not.
No, it'll be on to the next meeting.
Oh, I thought you had the resolution.
Oh, okay, I thought so too, okay, never mind.
Any other questions?
No.
So general direction, board is accepting the 22 lot, as Dick Eller said, the town zoning yield, directs the applicant to produce additional sketch plans, under their election to either affordable housing with the increased density, and to address some of the concerns of the board in terms of the
Well,
location.
we're gonna wanna do what Jeff did, more like,
Oh, but so this map right here, so this,
Say more.
so this map shows,
Region.
but this map shows a 22 lot cluster development.
Oh, you
So
mean if we wanted
if
to-
you comply with the Long Island Workforce Housing Act with the 10% density increase, you would get 2 additional lots. So you could prepare a 24 lot Long Island Workforce Housing Act sketch.
But that would be submitted to, when we submit the preliminary to the town.
Well, it would, yeah, I mean, at that point, yeah, your sketch plan, you know, you would have to identify, okay, here's our Long Island Workforce Housing Act compliant sketch map, which shows 24 lots,
I'll
2 of
let
which are
Jeff talk
reserved.
to my daughter.
Yeah.
I'll stay out of it.
Yeah, these are just procedurally the requirements that we would need going forward.
I'll stay out of it.
Very good, yep, thank you. Yep, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4 on the agenda, 498 Main Road LLC.
This is just a very quick follow-up. The applicant did submit revised plans for 498 Main Road to show the handicap accessible walkway from the handicap parking stall to the small retail building. And the plans I do in the resolution, I did include a note because the plans did not show it, that the chicken coop or that the dilapidated shed that's on the property will need to be re-sided in order to match the existing structures on the site. So that was it, just a couple of quick little points.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a public hearing that was held open from the previous meeting for Tara Development. Sure. I'm sorry, yeah. It's a public hearing that was held open, so.
I was not here at the earlier meeting, but I think what's happened with this is just a 2-lot subdivision. The 2-lot subdivision includes a parcel that's across the street, Ellen Street, that has 6,000 plus square feet in it, and we were using that combination plus the 79,588 square feet of the 2 lots to have those lots approved. And we thought that was appropriate to do. Questions have been raised, apparently, as to whether we should be going to the zoning board. We thought that using that extra parcel and having that ultimately perhaps conveyed to the town would satisfy the requirements. There has been discussion between Mr. Murphy, myself, Mr. Ehlers, myself. We're willing, if necessary, to go to the zoning board to have the small area of that 1 lot have a variance granted to it so that both lots are satisfactory. It's in the R40 district, so we have 1 lot that's 41,000, 1 lot that's virtually 39,000, and if necessary, we'll go to the zoning board if that's what this board desires.
What was the specific question that the resident had at the last meeting that we needed Mr. Cuddy here for? Was it the square footage didn't meet it and the fact that it wasn't a contiguous
Yes, that
parcel?
was mainly that it wasn't contiguous, because as we stated, you know, and the board's aware, the creation of, and I don't wanna call it a lot, but the creation of this parcel of land was the result of the initial Tall Oak subdivision. There was a non-pollution zone, which was the parcel was gonna be dedicated to the town water district. They were gonna put water district infrastructure there, I believe through just test wells and investigations. They decided against that. And yeah, so the question at the planning board meeting last week, or 2 weeks ago, was how are we including this contiguous parcel as part of this, being that it's separated by the town road?
And who would own that across the street? Wasn't that a question also?
Well, that was the initial thought behind it was that we would include the dimensional, the size of the parcel in lot number 2, so that both lots on the east side of Ellen Street complied, and that there would just be a covenant placed on that piece of property, stating that there should be no development, no tree clearing, no land clearing, et cetera. That was the initial thought behind how to process this out.
We don't have a problem with that, but I think if you look physically at the site, this parcel is really connected to a parcel that's 300 feet long, that goes, it's a berm, goes around the entire side of Ellen Street. And so this is connected to that. It looks like it's separate here, but it's not. And so we're willing, and I think Mr. Ehlers and I have discussed this, to certainly give it to the town. The rest of it is town property. In other words, it's connected to a 300-foot strip that is all town property. So it makes sense that the town has this piece too. And obviously, we've agreed to sterilize it, and it's not a problem for us. It was just a question, could we combine those numbers so that we ultimately didn't have to get a zoning variance?
I think the current status is they're gonna go for the zoning variance.
Yeah.
In the zoning variance application, they're gonna offer the dedication as a condition of that variance, and that would be something that would resolve the
But what's the public benefit of the town taking that little parcel?
It gets added on to the contiguous open space around it. Makes it larger. Yeah. And as a zoning office for the town, I could not find anything in the code that would allow this out parcel to be considered as part of the lot 2, because it's like an old file map where you can take a sending area and receiving area, and you have an undersized lot in your receiving area. By transferring land from a sending area to the receiving parcel, you can make up that difference. We don't have such a code in Riverhead, and that's why I believe the best remedy is for the applicant to go seek the relief from the zoning board.
It is a unique situation because when the town had intentions to put a public well there, they needed to control a certain zone of influence around that well, which extended across the street, so that's why it was included. Now the town don't need it, so that piece is just gonna be hanging there, but if it's consistent with the other open space, I don't have a problem with it. So let's let it go through zoning, and then we'll hold the public hearing open until you complete it, and then we'll have you come back and see if there's any additional comments, and then we'll move on it at that time.
If you would leave it open so that we
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, Mr. Znzeski, that if you see this, it should be joined together. It's just something, I didn't see it for a while. When I went there, I think you recognized that it should be together.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we could hold it open,
Sure.
we'll proceed then.
Want to make a motion? on
Yes,
that, or-
please.
Make a motion that the public hearing of Tara Development be,
I'm sorry.
oh, sorry.
Arthur Rass, 82 Elm Street, Riverhead, New York. I spoke at the last hearing, and we had, again, we have no problem with the subdivision, but now I'm just asking for just clarification of what was just discussed. So, I just want the clarification on whether or not, so, subdividing these 2 lots, the one across the street would basically be deemed not to be developed, nothing along those lines, and that small lot would be combined with lot 2?
Well, no, based on this, it
Or-
would not be combined. So they're gonna go to the zoning board of
Okay.
appeals for the creation of a substandard lot. This lot would be, this parcel. of
Parcel,
land
yeah.
Would be offered to the town for basically incorporation into the existing highway system.
Okay.
Open space.
Or into open space. So this is the one that would,
This is the small triangular lot.
okay, and then these 2 would be 2 buildable lots
Well,
essentially?
There's already a house here, so
Right.
they'd be creating one buildable lot. There would be no development across the street.
Okay. I just want a clarification on which lots we're doing what exactly. Okay. I'm good.
Make a motion that the public hearing of Tara Development be left open, so moved.
Second?
Okay, motion made and seconded to hold open the public hearing for Tara Development. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it'll be held open. All right, before we do the resolutions, any public comment on any of the resolutions? Any public comment? Okay?
I'll move resolution 89 for 406 Osborne Avenue, granting the preliminary site plan approval as amended.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 89 for 406 Osborne Avenue as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution's approved. Number 2 on the agenda.
Move resolution number 109 for Plaza 58 administrative site plan approval. So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 109 for Plaza 58 administrative approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution's approved.
110, Peconic, Northwell Health Center Care Center. Administrative site plan approval, convert a portion of vacant building space into an oncology center, medical office.
Second the motion?
Oh, sorry.
As amended?
That's good.
As amended.
Amended.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 110 for PBMC Health Care Center as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution's approved.
I'll move resolution 111, for 498 Main Road LLC, and I believe we have an amendment on that, do we not?
No, 498,
okay.
there was no amendment to 498.
So moved.
Second the motion?
Motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 111 for 498 Main Road. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution's approved. Okay, number 5.
Resolution 112, Holly Estates. Resolution granting approval for a 3-lot minor subdivision, existing 5.59 acre parcel that's located at 5314 Parker Road.
Second the motion?
Motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 112 for Holly Estates for a 3-lot minor subdivision. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution is approved. Number 6.
I'll move 113 Kaywood minor subdivision, granting approval for 2-lot minor subdivision on K Road. So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 113 Kaywood minor subdivision, 2 lots. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Resolution is approved. Any public comment for the board this afternoon? Any public comment? Okay.
Make a motion that we move the minutes of the Riverhead Planning Board for November 7th, 2019. So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of November 7th, 2019. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Next meeting is December 5th at 7 PM, Thursday, December 5th. Motion to adjourn?
Have a nice Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice.
You too.